Good morning, students. Today we are going to look at memory and forgetting, the kinds of forgetting and theories. These are very important. One, because we need to know how these processes happen in our brain and how important these are for our daily lives, and what all can go wrong if memory or forgetting is affected. And it's also important from the exam point of view. So please listen as I take you through these two important topics, memory and forgetting, which very often we take it for granted. Memory, we know, serves to store and recall information. As we go through this topic, just try to remember how a computer works, how a system works, and how we insert information by typing some letter or document, and it goes into the software or computer, and it gets stored there as files or Word document, and then we know it is there, we give a name, and when we want, we are able to, same way how we retrieve that information whenever we need it. Similarly, our brain also works like a computer in many of the functions. In memory or forgetting, it works similar to a computer process. So we'll just look at it. The concept and term memory can be interpreted according to the field or aspect in which it is used. In physiological and neurological sciences, it can be defined as the ability to receive, store, and maintain information, and expertise to be recalled and restored when needed. Now, forgetting is defined as the inability to retrieve memories of the past or to remember new information, events that are happening in the present or both. For example, you would have forgotten your fourth standard teacher's name, or you may forget when you visited a certain place. You may try to recollect, retrieve those memories, but or something you will remember it. Maybe a picture of that place with you in it, you may be able to remember it. Forgetfulness can happen because the information simply no longer exists in memory, or it still exists and is stored, but for some reason it can no longer be retrieved. This forgetfulness may be temporary and may remain and may even worsen over time. I hope you understood what forgetfulness is. Now, I'll just again repeat you. Forgetting is defined as the inability to retrieve memories of the past or to remember new information, both present and past events. It can happen because the information is no longer existing in the memory, or it is still existing but is stored, but for some reason, we will look at those reasons later, it cannot be retrieved. So it may be temporary and may remain and may even worsen over time. So all these we will look at it in detail. Types of forgetfulness and theories of forgetting. First of all, what is memory in psychological terms? Memory is a psychological process that goes beyond remembering important information. Like any senses, taste or vision, hearing, including the sense of consciousness. It is a conceptual process that is influenced by our beliefs, anticipations, expectations, and fears. In psychology, memory is defined as the possibility by which behaviors are adapted to human experiences. It can be more clearly defined as a cognitive mental process that stores and saves information, experiences, and different situations experienced by man and learns. Again, memory is defined as the possibility by which behaviors are adapted to human experiences. For example, you are taught to brush your teeth, and then you adapt to that behavior of brushing your teeth every day, all your life. You get adapted to that learning, that memory, that behavior, and it becomes your everyday experience, brushing of teeth. It can be more clearly defined as a cognitive mental process that stores and saves information, experiences, and different situations experienced by man and learns. Hope it's clear what your understanding of your memory is. Okay, it is all about experiences, all about what we have learned. There is a thinking, as I said, cognitive mental process. There is thinking involved, there is storing involved, there is saving involved, and there are experiences and situations involved. I hope you understand what memory is. Memory function restores the required information after a long or short period of time. It is important to note that the concept of memory is more meaningful than the concept of remembering. So, first of all, you need to know that these are two different things, and it is more meaningful than the concept of remembering. Our memory system works in three separate processes: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding, like for example, we go back to our computer, we encode, we type in the keyboard all that we want to document. So we type it, encoding. Then there is storage, we store it in a file. And then whenever we want, we open the file and take the matter, the document. So same way, in brain, whatever information that's coming from our environment is encoded, stored, and retrieved when required. So what is encoding? This is the process of converting information into specific forms for processing. So process of converting information into specific forms of processing. For example, it has its own way of process the information that's coming from outside. You get only raw material, raw information, and the brain processes it and converts the raw information into specific forms for processing. Storage. This is what it looks like. Storage information for subsequent recovery or retrieval. The model of storage is the model of the stage, which includes sensory, short-term and long-term memory. Generally, all long-term memories begin as sensory experiences, are encoded, then are stored long-term after passing through short-term processing. So they say all memories, long-term memories, begin as sensory experiences. It can be a sound, it can be a feeling of pain, it can be a visual image, it can be a taste. And so it is starting as a sensory experiences. Then it is encoded as, for example, the stimuli of sensation in the body. It is sensed as pain and it's encoded as pain due to a sting, due to a fall, pain due to a fracture. It's encoded and then stored long term after passing through short term processing. That is storage. So, how? From senses it is encoded and stored. Next is the retrieval. It is aware of the conscious or unconscious of information from long term memory. We are aware, or the brain is aware, that there is something in the memory, in something that is stored, a conscious or unconscious information from a long term memory. Consolidated information is stored in long term memory registers, then reactivated and returned to short term memory. So, when you retrieve, it's like in a government office, someone who has died many years ago, maybe 40, 50 years ago, if they have to retrieve some information from that file, those files would have gone into some go downs or some rooms, basement rooms. It won't be in the main office. So the officer may say that those are kept in one storage place in the basement, and it may take time. So they have to wait because those are old files, like old memories kept somewhere far away. Whereas the immediate files, the recent years files, are kept in the main office. Same way, the long-term memories, we call it as imagined registers, have to be reactivated, has to be brought up to the main office from the basement rooms. You may have seen in medical records, big hospitals, how very, very old ancient files which are not destroyed are kept in some basements if you have gone to some hospitals. And suddenly somebody wants some information about the patient who died many years ago. They will go down to the basement and bring it to the main office or the main room. So like old registers and recent registers, memory is reactivated and returned to short-term memory. This is achieved through the activation of the information's network through the use of retrieval signal. Okay, we'll go into that. Now, what is forgetting in psychology? According to Wikipedia, forgetting or disremembering, in other words, disremembering or forgetting, is a clear loss or modification of information already encoded and stored in an individual's long-term memory. So it can be either lost or it is modified, not correct date, not the correct name, another name or another date, another day. And it is intuitive or gradual process in which old memories cannot recall from memory storage. So there is some block in remembering because it is either lost or modified. That is what is called forgetting. I'll say it again. Forgetting or disremembering is a clear loss or modification of information already encoded and stored in an individual's long-term memory. It is an intuitive or gradual process in which old memories cannot recall from memory storage. So there is a register, but we are not able to retrieve the register. In simple words, forgetting is an inability to remember. That's a very simple definition. Forgetting is an inability to remember. Psychologists usually use the word forgetting to encode before long-term memory and refer to the obvious loss of information stored. Forgetfulness happens with people frequently in life. All of us forget, which may be normal with age. We all tend to forget a lot of things. It can be an indicator of health problems requiring medical intervention, and these health memory problems may be associated with dementia. Some extent of forgetfulness can be treated normal. For example, you would have forgotten your key where you would have kept, you would have forgotten your meeting on a particular day. If it's happening occasionally, it may be normal. Due to some preoccupation, you would have forgotten. But if it's going to be recurrent and you're always tending to forget dates and meetings and where you keep things, and also if you're at an older age, then it requires medical intervention, because this could be associated with dementia, which is a memory problem, which is seen more now than before, and more people are going into dementia, even starting at an early stage. So when we call forgetfulness, we need to be careful about the intensity, about how frequent it's happening, at what age it's happening. Even in a younger person, if it's happening in a severe way, then there could be some organic problem, again, which needs a medical intervention. So we need to take that into account. Often forgetfulness, which leads to the disruption of human daily functions and professional and social capabilities, is one of the first indicators to identify and diagnose, unlike natural forgetfulness and related to aging, which does not disrupt the daily functions of humans. For example, if suddenly a person who had very good memory is forgetting many things, and this is very sudden, I think it's good to get the person checked and rule out organic problems. It could be a brain tumor or some other problems, unless it is age related, where it is normal for an elderly person to forget things. So we need to be cautious about at what age forgetfulness happens. In the form of a disorder, or in more severe cases, it can be described as amnesia. The word amnesia refers to the loss of memory. This is a kind of memory disorder that occurs from a loss of what has already been stored. Okay, we all have heard about this word, amnesia, and there are even movies which explain what amnesia is and what it can do. Suddenly when somebody has had an accident, or when they have had a trauma experience of a death of a loved one, suddenly they go into a temporary or even sometimes a permanent amnesia if it's due to a head injury. So this amnesia, where they forget what has happened to them, they forget the incident, they forget people, and they don't forget the past history at all. So this again could be due to organic problems, or it could even be sometimes due to a emotional distress or emotional trauma. So again, we must understand how all these functions which are happening in the brain, the processes, can be influenced by emotional factors. Like a trauma can lead to amnesia. So we must always remember there is a strong link between our emotions and our body and our physiological processes, which we also saw in the chapter on emotions. So never forget that. Now we go on to how and why do we forget things. First, we need to look at what are the different types of forgetting. And types of forgetting, there are, as I said, two types of forgetting. One is natural forgetting, the second is artificial forgetting. Natural or passive forgetting is unknown and happens over time. It's quite normal for people to forget what was previously experienced. Painful memories push into the unconscious layers of the brain and go there to forget. Very often, all of us know we don't remember everything that has happened to us in the past. The reason may be we have never bothered to remember it, we have never bothered to retrieve it, and it's just gone and had a natural death. Those memories are just gone forever. But sometimes consciously our mind also pushes painful memories. And as Freud says, even our emotions or motives play a strong role in pushing into our subconscious the memories that are painful to us, which we don't want to remember. It again could be a loss of a loved one, it could be a shameful incident that happened, it could be a sexual abuse that happened during childhood that the person will never want to remember. It gets pushed into unconscious layers of the brain and go there to forget. So that is natural or passive forgetting, which happens without our conscious effort. Artificial forgetting is the tendency of artificial neural networks to completely and abruptly forget about the information previously learned on learning new artificial information. This also we will come in detail later. Now we start with amnesia. Sometimes we forget because instead of passing the time, we experience painful injuries in our brain. Amnesia is a situation in which we lose memories, facts, dates, or difficult to remember recent events. Recent or past events. Things like amnesia, stroke, a major blow to the head, or a tumor impacting part of the brain can lead to amnesia. Excessive use of medicines or alcohol also can cause amnesia. So mostly any injury to the brain, any injury to the nerves, injury to stroke, and any alcohol abuse, substance abuse, even drugs, medicines can cause amnesia. There are amnesia quotes that explain amnesia very clearly. Every day, huge amounts of information break off like icebergs and melt away. What worries me is that much, it's a quote by Paul Saffron. What worries me is that much information in electronic form is never reduced to paper. Some people have described this as being on the edge of a digital dark age and fear we may commit a massive act of amnesia. Just a quote. Let us not suffer from national amnesia that causes us to forget who and what we are. And another quote is, we live in a society of an imposed forgetfulness, society that depends on public amnesia. If you look at it, today we don't remember as much as our ancestors remembered. Those days, they wrote down everything. They had to memorize everything, whether it is a phone number or anything, a friend's phone number, they had to write it down. Today, with all our digital equipments, with our advanced technology, we just tap the button and we get all the information, which means we are very passive. We don't make any efforts to remember anything because it's all there. Those days even a calculator was not there, so we had to memorize our tables and we had to recollect every table we learned to calculate something. Today a calculator does what it took half an hour for us to calculate. Today a simple addition to a complicated mathematical problem is solved in a few seconds with a gadget called calculator. So can you see that how it's easy for us to not to remember, it's easy for us to forget, it's easy for us to have amnesia because the brain is quite passive because of our gadgets. And a nation that forgets its past can function no better than an individual with amnesia. I believe we are a species with amnesia. I think we have forgotten our roots and our origins. I think we are quite lost in many ways. Again, this is a quote by Graham Hancock. I think we are quite lost in many ways, and we live in a society that invests huge amounts of money and vast quantities of energy in ensuring that we all stay lost. A society that invests in creating unconsciousness, which invests in keeping people asleep so that we are just passive consumers of products, not really asking any of the questions. Forgetting as the loss, permanent or temporary, of the ability to recall, recognize something learned earlier. Mann, as psychologists have defined, forgetting is the loss, permanent or temporary, of the ability to recall or recognize something learned ability. This is a very good, simple definition by Mann. And Drever says forgetting means failure at any time to recall an experience when attempting to do so or to perform an action previously learned. Okay. Now we go into, I hope you understood. So I'll just let you remember this Mann's definition for forgetting him. Please keep this as a good definition, which is forgetting as the loss, permanent or temporary, of the ability to recall or recognize something learned earlier. Now, types of amnesia. There are two types of amnesia: psychological amnesia and biological amnesia. What is psychological amnesia? This kind of amnesia occurs as a result of major disturbances in the process of encoding, storage, and retrieval or recovers. There are various types of psychological amnesia in the world. So basically, if there are some psychological disturbances during the process of encoding or during the process of storage and retrieval or recovers. For example, a simple example, somebody is telling you something important, and that at the same time a very important call is coming from a friend, and so your encoding process is affected because there is something else happening at the same time, which is emotionally intense experience, or it could be some incident that's happening that you are not able to encode the information that's coming to you from person A because person B is telling you something more distressing. So imagine major disturbance. It could be during encoding process. It could be even after you have encoded properly when there's no disturbance. At this time of storage also there could be some emotional disturbance, or at the time of retrieval. There are various types of psychological amnesia in the world. One is childhood amnesia. Now this may be due to an inability to recover the memories of childhood which are unpleasant. We are going to look at different types of psychological amnesia, and we started with childhood amnesia. What is childhood amnesia? Childhood amnesia is due to an inability to recover the memories of childhood which are unpleasant. These memories can create a sense of guilt, so they are suppressed. Another reason may be due to differences in encoding methods. During childhood, language and experiences, they are encoded and stored abusively, but as soon as the child develops and learns the language, the information is stored in a verbal form. This leads to retrieval problems that are unable to remember childhood memories. So you understand that one could be that it is unpleasant and painful, that the adult doesn't want to remember those unpleasant events because of the guilt it may bring or the shame it may bring. So they're suppressed. But the other reason could be because of the encoding method itself. Because it's during childhood, the language is just developing and experiences are also in a very immature level, and they are experienced or they are encoded and stored rather abusively or not in a organized way. But as soon as the child develops and learns the language, the information is stored in a verbal form. So this could also cause retrieval problem that are unable to remember childhood memories. So it's called childhood amnesia. I'm sure if you recollect, there may be some event in your childhood that would have caused you a lot of shame. You're ashamed of it, and whenever you think of it, you may feel guilty and a sense of shame. So you would find that that particular event or incident would not come to your memory. You would have forgotten it. Now that for the sake of exercise, I'm telling you, you may try to remember it. So this is what is called childhood amnesia. Defensive amnesia. The second type of amnesia is called defensive amnesia. It's developed to rely on self-esteem and to deal with anxiety. A person suffering from this amnesia might forget his name, business, relatives' names, and all other things such as eating, basic habits like eating, drinking, talking, etc. This kind of amnesia usually happens when a person is in a very serious condition to harm his self-esteem. Sometimes in this situation he can run away to new places, in faraway places. This is called a fugue. See, this is because the person is deliberately wanting to forget everything, because there is a threat to his self-dignity, self-esteem, and he wants to escape from something that he deliberately wants to forget everything because of some anxiety, because of some problem that has happened, crisis that wants to defend, and so it's comfortable or convenient for him to forget everything. And we do see some people on the road that something would have happened and they have just forgotten where they are from, and it could have been due to mental illness also, or it could be due to defensive amnesia. Dream amnesia. Everyone experiences dreams, but he will be unable to remember the contents of all dreams because many of them are in hidden form, so there will be no sign of memory. Not all of us are able to remember all the dreams that we get. Many people cannot remember, but they know they have had some dream, but when you ask them what it is, they may not. Some people will remember a small bit of the dream. Some people may remember nothing of the dream. So this is called dream amnesia, that you are not able to remember your dreams. Biological amnesia. This amnesia is due to so earlier we saw psychological amnesia. Now this is due to unusual functioning of the brain. Such abnormalities can be caused by a shock on the head, like an injury. Some problems such as temporary disturbances in the blood supply to the brain, and alcohol and certain drugs like marijuana, brain disorders, and some other damage to the brain can cause this kind of amnesia. We all know that many people who have had road traffic accidents, two-wheeler accidents, a head injury, they do develop amnesia. As a result of these problems, it might result in an amnesia called transient global amnesia, which is a deep memory loss. It is called global because all stored information is lost and no new memories can be made during these conditions. This is why it's a very, can you see, it's a deep memory loss, and it's called global because all the stored information is lost. This is why that two-wheeler riders are advised helmet, because anything to do with head injury can result in such problems. If the head injury is bad, it can result even in a permanent memory loss. That's why it's so very important that we tell all the students to wear helmet, because all the other areas, body parts, even if it's fractured, can be restored or operated upon. But when there is a injury to the head and the brain, it can cause so many complications, including things like memory loss. Imagine if you can't remember who you are and who your parents are. It's the most worst thing that can happen to anybody. So please remember that as you are learning about brain functions related to memory, forgetfulness, amnesia, always remember how precious these things are, and remember as students to wear helmet without fail. Don't find excuses to not to wear a helmet. But remember, all these things happen only once, and that once can bring about a lifelong change in your life. So this is why again and again we insist that everybody wears a helmet. If for you to understand this memory, amnesia and forgetfulness, I think it's good for you to visit a neurology ward where you see patients who have had head injuries suffering with such amnesia. And biological amnesia also has three major types. One is retrograde amnesia, anterograde amnesia, and infantile amnesia. What is retrograde amnesia? Sometimes we cannot remember the things that happened before the onset of this amnesia. Therefore, when we may be able to create new memories, we are not able to remember those things that happened just before an accident. We are not able to remember this amnesia. For example, if we experience retrograde amnesia, we may remember the person we met now, but we may not be able to remember a person or a party or a wedding 6 months earlier. For example, just before the accident, you may not remember anything that happened before your road accident, but you can remember what has happened after the accident or what is happening then. So this is called retrograde amnesia. Anterograde amnesia refers to the inability to create new memories after the onset of amnesia. So anterograde is you cannot create new memories after the onset of amnesia. Sometimes it means that we are having difficulty remembering the immediate past. In such amnesia, our memories are retained from the past, but we won't be able to remember the name of the person we just met now. So the immediate memory you cannot remember. We ask you about last year or last week, that you will remember. So that is anterograde amnesia. Third is infantile amnesia. When we were 2 or 3 years old, we didn't have, infantile means infants, childhood. We didn't have many memories. This is due to our loss of infantile amnesia, very, very early memories. Most of us don't remember those things when we were very young. Some have suggested that we lose these memories because they can be painful and traumatic, and so we suppress them. But other explanations are slightly different, suggesting that these memories were not created and therefore we cannot use them. So this is infantile amnesia, that is forgetting things which happened when we were 2 or 3 years old. Now we go to theories of forgetting. Like emotions or motivation, here also memory and forgetting also have certain theories from this whole phenomenon of forgetting and memory has developed. So every concept in psychology has its own theories. Now forgetting is a universal phenomenon. It seems to be some degree in every human being. How and why this condition occurs? This question has given rise to extensive research and development of some theories. Some important theories are the trace decay theory, and we also have proactive in that there are proactive inhibition and retroactive inhibition. Now in interference theory, the second one is interference theory. First one is the trace decay theory. According to this theory, the memories we make leave traces on all our brains. And as soon as these traces take time, they will be faded. These marks or traces which are responsible for our memory are called engrams. Okay, you all would have seen how on a rock, when we go out, we see in the rock some traces of some writings, some lines or something. Those seem to be very permanent. But say if you engrave some designs on a, for example, on a foam or on a rubber, immediately there will be a design formed, but it disappears. It's not permanent. I hope you're getting what I mean. When you do a design on a rubber sheet or a foam, there is an immediate impression, but it slowly disappears. Whereas on a rock, the design stays on, especially on a freshly made concrete cement floor. When you walk on it, your feet is there. The impression of your feet stays. It becomes permanent unless you remove it. Same way, this theory says that memories we make leave some traces on the brain, and after some time these traces fade away, like how you make some designs on a rubber or something, on a foam. These marks or traces which are responsible for a memory are called as engrams. The memory system is formed in our nervous system. If the learned process is not used for a long time, the mark fades. Even when you take a photocopy, you have noticed that you get some bills from the shops, from the computer machines, ATM machines. It's so clear when you take it on the first day. After a few months, if you look at the paper, the whole print is gone. You can't read the amount or the things you bought from the shop. It's completely gone. That's why they say the printout from the machines, if you wanted to stay, take a photocopy, because photocopied things stay permanent, whereas even they can fade away, but they stay rather more for a longer time than a printout that's from a computer machine. After a few months, it completely disappears. The bill becomes a blank paper. So this is what happens in this is according to the theory of, you're talking about trace decay. Decay means it's gone, it disappears, it's completely lost. Decay means something that's completely rotten and gone, decayed, spoiled. So this is because after we learn something, we don't use, and then the mark fades. For example, you'd have learned to play a piano, but you haven't completely mastered it. You just left the classes halfway. You would have just started learning and you have forgotten. And then you never went back to playing it because you never mastered it also. When you become an adult, when you have to restart your piano lessons, you don't remember anything that you have learned when you were small. You would have forgotten the notes, and it's like as if you are going to learn it from the beginning as a fresh learner. That's because the brain did remember the notes on the piano for some time. It was engraved, but then slowly it faded away. Therefore, it's a mistake of time that is responsible for forgetting. So time has made you forget. In other words, trace decay is a natural loss of information over time. Very simple. That what you have learned is forgotten. The traces is gone, faded because of time. Okay, it's clear? As soon as we were formed, age, engrams or memory marks, we were unable to remember some facts or events, and materials have not been modified often, can easily be faded and forgotten. I want to inform you that some of the sentences, there are some errors in the formation of the sentence. So unless we have not modified, we have not used it, what is learnt earlier is just gets faded and forgotten. However, if continuous memory or modification happens, then these organs are kept firm and can easily remember. Here it's not organs, it's traces, memories. Firm. Now, why? Because suppose the child who learned piano, started learning piano, on and off, if the child tries to remember the note, tries to say, oh, this is note B, A, B, C note, so it tries to play piano, whenever it sees a piano, it will continue to remember. But if it has not touched the piano after the initial learning, it tends to forget it. Now the second theory, we saw trace decay theory. The second one is interference theory. Trace decay theory happens because of time. What we learn early, since it's unused, it's forgotten. Here interference theory is one important reason to forget about everyday life is the interference of the material. New and old experiences may have to be forgotten by interference. Memory marks or traces that overlap interfere with each other and erase them. In other words, if the material learned is to remain in memory for a long time, then it will have to make memory traces in our brain. All of us learn and experience memory traces. When more and more memory traces are formed, there is some overlapping of the traces, which results in obliteration and interference. Learning here will interfere with and inhibit another memory process of learning. That is, a new learning makes you forget an old learning that has taken place in the past. Okay. So, for example, we look at types of interference. One is proactive inhibition. The second is retroactive inhibition. To understand what is interference theory, we will look at these two types of interference. One is proactive inhibition. Two, retroactive inhibition. Now, to understand interference theory, what is this proactive inhibition? If earlier education interferes with learning later and remembers new material, then it is known as a proactive inhibition. This usually happens when the previous education is better than the present. For example, if one learns a theory in psychology and then learns the second, and the new theory is remembered and forgotten the old, then it is proactive interference. For example, you learnt something earlier, that is maybe you learnt about emotion. Now you are learning about memory theory, and you are able to remember the memory theory and you have forgotten the emotion theory. Or you are learning sociology and psychology in your first years. So these are very probably attractive. You have forgotten what you have learnt in plus 2. In your school last year, you learnt about physics, biology and chemistry. All that you may have forgotten, because what is new has replaced what you have learnt earlier. This is called proactive inhibition. Retroactive inhibition. Inhibition or prevention of earlier learning and remembering by later learning is known as retroactive inhibition. The underlying condition between the original education and its memories is the reason for forgetting. It is called retroactive because interference happens with the memory of events that came before the intervention activity. For example, a student learned about inspiration in psychology last week. This week he learns about perception. Now he tries to remember information about the inspiration. The points related to perception will be remembered in his memory. So, he is not able to remember the old one. He is able to remember the new one. Okay. Sorry, there's one error. In proactive. So we learnt about. I'll go back to. Proactive inhibition. Here, earlier education interferes with learning later and remembers new material. Then it is known as a proactive inhibition. This usually happens when the previous education is better than the present. Okay, one correction. Here, the previous material is remembered. In proactive, the previous material is remembered, whereas the new material you have learned is not remembered. Okay, then it is called proactive. But in retroactive inhibition, inhibition or prevention of earlier learning and remembering by later learning is known as retroactive inhibition. The underlying condition between original education and its memories is the reason for forgetting. It's called retroactive because interference happens with the memory of events that came before the intervention activity. For example, student learned about inspiration in psychology last week. This week he learns about perception. Now, he tries to remember the information about the inspiration, but the points related to perception will be remembered in his memory. Okay. So here he has forgotten what he learnt earlier and he remembers what he learns now. In the earlier one, he remembers, he has forgotten what he learnt now but remembers what he learnt earlier. Here in retroactive inhibition, he remembers what he learnt now and forgotten what he has learnt earlier. Okay. Repression is another theory. The third theory is repression theory. So we saw decay theory, we saw trace decay theory, we saw interference theory, how a past learning can affect the present learning or how the present learning can affect the past learning, both as inhibition theory and retroactive inhibition and proactive inhibition theories. Now, the third theory in forgetfulness is repression theory. Repression again is a defense mechanism. What we don't want, what we don't like, we want to forget. So unconsciously our mind tries to push it to the subconscious or unconscious mind. It's repression, not suppression. Suppression is done consciously, repression is done unconsciously. Without our knowledge, our mind is capable of putting our anxious, painful past into deeper levels where we don't remember it. So repression is a defensive mechanism as stated by Freud in the theory of psychoanalysis. Painful experiences and forbidden desires are pushed into the unconscious and the person does not want to remember them. Although they try to come to the level of consciousness, they are pushed back or deliberately avoided. According to correspondence, early childhood education. According to early childhood education, this according to correspondence, early childhood education, there are times when an incident or any action so painful that we cannot cope with its memory, so we completely repress the memory. Teachers of early childhood education argued that very dangerous or anxiety stimulating content is often unable to gain access to awareness. By pressing memory in the subconscious and actively repressing it, we are unable to remember the memory. So here, a child who has been sexually abused will definitely not want to remember because it cannot cope with that painful memory. So many children will sometimes not even remember that they've been abused in their early years unless some stress triggers those memories, and during a counseling session they may share what has happened to them, but it's very rarely they try to remember those experiences because they don't want to. Sometimes people do remember. By pressing, so there is an active process of pushing these unpleasant memories into the subconscious areas and actively repressing it. So there is a defense. Our mind is defending us from facing painful experiences, from remembering painful experience. So that's why it's called a repression theory, which is a defense mechanism. Okay, so motivated forgetting is purposeful forgetting, even if it is not purposeful at a conscious level. Unable to remember the casualty patients, what happened in the time of accident was because of the painful memories of the traumatic incident or problem. So actually it's called motivated forgetting because the motive is the person or the child does not want to remember the unpleasant incident that happened to him or her. And same way how many people are not able to recollect an accident which has happened, they have seen, because things were so traumatic, they will want to forget. It's a motivated forgetting or a purposeful forgetting, because the motive is they don't want to remember the unpleasant accident or things that happened in a casualty room. And then the last theory is retrieval failure theory, or a retrieval cue failure theory. Retrieval is required to remember. We all know that we have to remember something, we have to go to the shelf, we have to take out a file, and we need to remember the file name so that we'll get the paper that we want in that file. So unless we remember the file and go where the file is kept, only then we can retrieve the information we will remember. Same way, if we have to know our bank account, the amount we have in the bank, we have to remember the bank account number, the details of the bank, and then we go into that account number, only then we can retrieve the details that we want. Some retrieval cues and rebuilding processes help in this process. The cues or the clues or rebuilding process help in retrieval. These retrieval cues or reminders direct the memory search to the appropriate section of the LTM section, that is long-term memory section. Without proper recovery signals, items stored in long-term memory cannot be demanded. It leads to forgetting. LTM is long-term memory, STM means short-term memory. Now, what are the signals or cues? Like we all have some cues to remember our password. We remember certain cues we have to remember a password for your mail ID or your ATM number. That's called cues or reminders. So you would have used a ATM number which will remind you of something, some date or some name or some event. So you will remember it. That's called cues. If you don't have anything, if you just put some random number without any reminder or a cue, you will never be able to remember if you have not used it for a long time. So retrieval failure is a failure to remember or recall the memory due to unacceptable stimuli or cues which were present when the memory is encoded. See, today when we all use passwords, When we use a password, we always have some things, some symbols that will remind us, okay, to remember the password. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm saying. Remember how you kept a password for your ATM. You would have linked it to something so that you will remember that particular link, which you call it as a cue, to remember your password. Same way, unless you have something like that, when a new password is created, there is a tendency to forget. A new password would be a new stimuli, then you will forget the old one. It's a very common experience that when we see that person, we fail to remember that person's name, because when we are unable to recover it from our memory, very often we all forget somebody's name when we see them after many years. But if we have some cue, for example, years ago in college we would have kept a nickname for that person. So then if you remember the nickname, you will remember the person's name also. So these are cues. Sometimes we describe it as the answer to the tip of tongue, to the tip of the tongue. It's a phrase that we use. Also, forgetting during the exam is this sort of forgetting. That's why we all have association words. When we want to remember a formula, we form mnemonics where we associate each formula with something that we remember. We call beading, that every letter of the formula we give an associate word which we will remember. For example, a fruit or a song name, a formula which has ORANG. We'll remember orange and we remember immediately the formula. I hope you understand. This is called the retrieval cue failure theory. So sometimes we can forget we find it difficult to retrieve because of a cue failure. So the conclusion is that the term memory refers to the relative permanence of the effects of our experiences. And this is evidence of the occurrence of learning, and indeed a prerequisite for the continuation, advancement of learning. For example, memory is happening because we are learning something new every day, and it has to be permanent because it's necessary, a prerequisite. If we have to continue to learn, advance our learning. Suppose you've learned tables in your school, and later in the high school you have mathematics where you have to use tables. Unless you continue to remember your tables, at a later class you cannot solve a mathematical problem without the recollection of your tables you have learnt. Same way, your mother taught you how to brush your teeth, and unless that is in your memory, suddenly imagine you've forgotten. After 1 year you're given a brush, you don't even know what it is, or after 1 week you don't know how to use what the brush is used for. You may start combing your hair with the toothbrush. Imagine, this is what happens when your memory is affected. So do you realize how important your memory is? That every day you're remembering your toothbrush is to brush your teeth. Suppose you've forgotten that learning. Next day when you take the toothbrush, you don't know what it is for. So which means every day you have to keep learning. That's why memory is so precious. Every day you can't be learning that the comb is to comb your hair. Every day you can't be learning tables. So the flow of information depends on the various communication channels. The memory then becomes a commercial memory. The memory is the process of installing the modifications in the theory of behaviors and keeping them ready for use. Large number of contemporary scholars have agreed that the factors that affect remembering, retention and retrieval are the same that affect educational attainment and acquisition from the point of knowledge. According to researchers, forgetfulness is defined as letting a person control what is stored for, either his weak heart, either deliberately or by negligence. Forgetting is the opposite of remembering. Forgetting causes many things that prevent a person from remembering a certain thing, a passing event in his life, or even losing all information. There are many reasons for forgetting. There's no specific thing that leads a person to forget, but it's many factors and reasons that we learnt earlier that may lead to forgetfulness, such as person passing an accident that enters him in a shock, that forgets everything that happened in the past, makes him remember only the accident. So this is all about forgetting. Okay, I hope you will be able to learn the theories of forgetting. Thank you.